Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Minecraft update video. This is Snapshot 21w10a, and I gotta say it, these just keep getting better and better, because my friends, in this one, wind has been added to Minecraft. That's right, the leaves are a-bustling, the water is a-rippling, and this is thanks to a graphical upgrade to the game. The rendering is now done with something called OpenGL 3.2, which means that resource packs and shaders can enable amazing features like this inside of the game. We're actually using a resource pack right now to show off this new possibility. It was made by one of the developers of the game. Xalafan on Twitter is where you can find them and find this resource pack they shared. Now, this graphical change does mean the minimum requirements for the game are going to be raised a bit. If you're playing on a potato and you're worried, there's a link in the description. You can find out the minimum stats for a computer required to play Java Edition. And before we check out this snapshot that has added Lush Caves to the game, we are actually going to hop over to Bedrock Edition, because last week we got to see the mountain biomes that are coming to 1.17. They will arrive in Java at some point, and for those of you that follow my second channel, you'll know that there wasn't a snapshot last week. I made a video about that and some Minecraft news that we had, and also a video about the mountains. So whenever there is stuff that isn't like worthy of a snapshot video on my main channel, the second channel is the place to, catch up on that. So I'm plugging it, you can head over there and subscribe if you want to. If not, no worries. And I'll tell you something, these mountains, they really are a big deal. The reason I covered it on my second channel initially was because Bedrock doesn't have the same sort of tools for analysing the world and actually finding the mountains. And so it's only through people sharing seeds of these mountains in the Minecraft community that I've been able to find this and share it with you as well, because these things are seriously rare. They are quite a unique thing to find in your world. You'll have to travel long distances to find a mountain range, and this one is absolutely massive. And one of the key things to learn about the mountains is that they have 3D biomes that actually go up vertically. So the mountain has stages. The first stage is the mountain meadows, which I think we're looking at down here. But again, Bedrock doesn't give you the tools to actually analyze what biome it is you're inside of. The next layer is the mountain grove. And then you have the snowy slopes, and I think that's obviously where we first see snow, like over in this level in the distance. And then above that you can have lofty peaks or snow-capped peaks, and I don't know which one of those are up the top here, but the mountain looks absolutely majestic. And the very peak of the mountain, which is this part right here, or possibly that one over there, reaches the world limit. This is Y256, and the world limit has been increased both on Java Edition and on Bedrock as well, but these things will generate all the way up to this height. And I also have a note from one of the developers that no more biomes are planned as of current, so we're probably looking at a pretty feature-rich example of the mountains right here. However, it is subject to change, but when it arrives on 1.17, I will of course do a deeper dive into this fantastic new part of the game. So back to Java Edition and this snapshot, where you'll notice texture changes among other things. We are really low down in the world, and that's because I noted that there was infested stone generating down here. Well, this is one of a few new blocks that are being added in this snapshot. And what I mean by that is that there is now infested Deepslate, so you won't have those stone pockets of infested blocks down at the bottom. If you don't know what those are, they're the ones with silverfish inside of them. And as well as that new block for Deepslate, we also have cracked Deepslate tiles, adding a tiny little bit of texture to that one, and cracked Deepslate bricks. Mojang are adding all of the blocks. They are not holding back on this one. We also have Deepslate emerald ore, Deepslate coal ore, and copper ore, right? I know what you're thinking, these things don't even generate down at that level. Well, these have been added for resource pack makers and people doing stuff in creative mode. You may really want to mix these textures together, and so they won't generate in the vanilla world, but they're now a part of the game. And along with the new blocks, some of the Deepslate textures have been tweaked slightly, so I've laid them all out here. I'll also put Mojang's official comparison image on the screen so you can see the before and after. We've also got a really interesting change to the Deepslate block. Not to any of its variants, just the Deepslate. It can now be placed on an axis. So when I place it on the ground, it has one type of axis. And this orients its texture kind of like you do with an oak log. So when we place an oak log against the side of a block like this, we get a different texture on top. And that's what you can do with Deepslate now. And it has 3 different rotations, and you're seeing all 3 of them like this. And 2 more things related to the Deepslate. In a furnace, you can now smelt your cobbled Deepslate into regular Deepslate. And we now have a recipe for the Deepslate tiles, which are made from the bricks, which are made from the polished, which is made from the cobble. Now there is also a structure you may have come across in this game that you can't locate using the structure command. They're very rare, difficult to find. They're called fossils and they look something like this. They generate with coal ore, but now when you find them down at the Deepslate level, they're going to generate with diamonds. Although I'm going to guess that they'll probably use the Deepslate diamond ore block. And if you've had a keen eye while we've been down here underground, you may have noticed that the Deepslate caves, they just look a little bit more randomized and natural. Well, the textures that get placed now have a random rotation. So this is different from what I showed you a moment ago with the axis. Every block has like a unique rotation in the world. So notice as I place them down how they're in the same axis, but they're getting a different texture rotation. And I think changes like that actually do wonders for this game, so I wanted to show you it with some natural lighting, because of course most of the time we check out these places, they're all really brightly lit up, and now in the dark, it looks even better. Okay my friends, it is time to check out the Lush Caves, and like the dripstone caves that we've already seen, the way to actually check them out is to create a world type of single biome. This is because they haven't put it into the world generation yet, but you're going to be able to check the biome out. And I've actually gone through this entire list just looking for any variants that are there, but it's just the single type Lush Caves that have been added. So let's go ahead and generate this world and check them out. Now this is an exciting sight. Obviously the biome is underground, but when I look off into the distance, I see the azalea trees. These are supposed to generate and lead you to the Lush Cave biome underground. So these are going to generate naturally in the world most likely, and they generate with the azalea leaves and the bushes, and then this right here is regular oak log, and below it we've got some rooted dirt. But digging down from here, we're going to find ourselves the Lush Cave. My friends, I barely know what to say. After flying around and checking out the terrain generation, these Lush Caves are going to be amazing every single time that you find them. They are adaptive to the environment that they're in, meaning every type of different cave generation can actually be a lush biome, and they don't enforce their ideas on the shape of the cave. They simply do things like replace the moss up here in the ceiling and down below as well. But one of the big things I've noticed is that with big caves, it's actually hard for all of this to be lit up. There's a lot going on down here, but you can't see it, and that's because the light sources are hanging off the ceilings. So it's some of the smaller caves that really kind of show the lush side of this. And it is actually quite difficult to find spots like this where the ceiling is close to the ground and a lot of the cave is illuminated. A lot of the time it tends to be big and open and really mysterious, and that is actually a wonder to explore. I mean, look at the way this is all generated here. This is simply majestic, the way the whole room opens up. You've got pockets of light showing off some of the mossy grass. You've got pillars of dirt and stone from top to bottom, and then a mine shaft hung with chains in the middle here. This is just breathtaking. And the caves are so interconnected that it eventually weaves its way through here, and we have a ravine up the top that is actually letting light into this area. And so you've got a real big contrast to what we saw a moment ago. They feel so different with lots of light in, but it does require either the glowstone berries sort of being close to the ground or having some light let in like this. Either way, absolutely remarkable sights. And so to get a broad feel for how this all works, I've been flying around in spectator mode deliberately without night vision, and you'll just stumble upon so many interesting shapes that you then want to explore. Any type of cave generation, it can simply replace with its own lush caves. And look at this, extending out down here and going in the opposite direction. It also then again joins up with a massive open area. It's really phenomenal. I mean, wow. But let's also check this with night vision on. And it now just feels so unbelievably different, right? I definitely prefer it the other way around. And if we go over here, we can fly back through where we just came from a moment ago. Wow, I'm so impressed with how this generates. they are doing a fantastic job with this update. And I could obviously fly around showing you how these caves generate all day in this video. In fact, I've spent a fair bit of time flying around myself. Now let's get to some of the particulars about how they generate. So at the ground level, you tend to get two different types of generation. You have the moss blocks with grass and carpets on top of them, and then you also have these clay formations which, when they level out, become pools of water, and this is where the drip leaves will naturally be found. And the generation at the moment possibly needs a little bit of work. Because we have spore blossoms randomly generating here and there, you also get particle effects nicely spread out inside of these places. Those moss blocks not only replace material on the ground, they replace it on the ceiling where we have the glowberry vines hanging down and creating that naturally generated light. And if it seems like I'm stating the obvious, well, I just want to make it as clear as the Mojang patch notes did. So another thing to mention is that this can all generate at any level in the world. So at the stone level, down at the Deepslate, as you've seen. And also there's nothing new that's been added alongside this stuff that we didn't see a couple of snapshots ago when we got introduced to all this blocks. So it's just about the new generation. However, there's one last thing that I want to point out, and that is clay, okay? No more trips to the swamp to gather your clay blocks. I mean, look at this. This is a great spot to come and get loads of it. So let's move on to ore distribution. This has been tweaked for the third time now. You are going to be able to find more emeralds inside of the mountains biome, and then there is reduced air exposure for coal. This means you'll see less of it roaming around on the surface, which I'm not sure if I'm a big fan of. That's an important thing early game, that you're able to find it on the surface and get some smelting going. There is also going to be more lapis, but less copper, less gold, less redstone in the world, and less iron, but you'll be able to find it in smaller blobs down at the bottom of the world. And last of all, the generation of diamond ores has definitely been nerfed. There's less air exposure, and supposedly these generate in smaller blobs. Now, we're used to seeing them in groups of 4, and that is actually the first one in a group of 4. Quite commonly, we see them in groups of 3 and 2, so diamonds will actually get a little tougher to find down here at the bottom of the world. And in the patch notes it says that lightning rods can now be waterlogged, but it doesn't seem to actually be implemented and there's no block state for it. So let's talk about a couple of details I missed from the last snapshot video. These classic monster spawner dungeons will now be generating below Y0 down at the Deepslate level. However, it should be said they are far less common in this current version of 1.17. And there is also a new type of terrain generation known as cracks, and I actually found this and then got distracted by something else generating in the world and got confused about the new feature when I was recording this last. So these cracks are like this. They go very deep down in the world. Apparently they can go all the way down to bedrock, and personally I'm not particularly keen on these because I feel like they could really punish the player if they're jumping around and they don't notice a crack and then all of a sudden you're falling down so far that it's just going to kill you and make it really difficult to get your items back. Oh, and here is what they look like in spectator mode, by the way. You could mistake them for a ravine. They are kind of similar, but yes, these are called cracks. So last of all, bugs. If you've ever watched a live stream of me on Hermitcraft, you might have seen some of the inventory desync issues that I have where the client and server don't agree. There is a couple of bugs related to that, so hopefully we'll see some improved performance in the future. There's also a bug for phantoms continuously making too much flapping sounds. I couldn't agree more. Hopefully those phantoms are going to be a little bit quieter. You can also use the give command to give a player so many items it crashes their game, so that has been fixed, as well as guardians being able to attack invisible axolotls, which makes a lot of sense. They shouldn't be able to see them. And so there are many more details in there, but those were the ones I thought were worth mentioning. You can find a link to the patch notes in the description box down below, as always. So anyway, it's the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, leave a like. Thank you for your support, and I'll see you next week, hopefully with another one. Bye bye.